what I would like to talk to you today is about the milestones actually in, see, it's modern science and technology. What, as far as I am concerned, modern means post-independent. That is for the past 75 years. That is what is being celebrated here. So we will start, to understand modern science, it's better to have a historical perspective. Let us go back 2,500, 3,000 years ago and look at what our country was. See, of course, if you go 2,500 years back, we call it the Vedic period. The education at that period was the so-called Gurukula system. There was a school, small, only a few number of students, not many. Each Gurukula had only a few number of students. All of them learned under one Guru. So they were actually living with the Guru. The Shishyas and Guru were living in the same building. And the wonderful thing is that there was no social hierarchy. So anybody could join the school and study. The social hierarchy came later, not in the Vedic period. This you should know very well. See, in Vedas, there is no, there is the Sioux and Aryans, but there is no caste name anywhere. So that we deteriorated later. Well, if you now move another, say, 500, 600, 700 years, go to the beginning of the Christian era, India was the center of learning. India and China were the center of learning. Just like you people, after your education, you want to go for higher education in Europe or United States, people from many parts of the world used to come to India for studies. That was the intellectual capital of the world. And of the schools, you see, I have visited this place. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden it vanished. I have visited Nalanda. I don't know how many of you have visited Nalanda. In fact, I wanted to put that picture, but I haven't put. In a lecture hall in Nalanda University, I stood there like this. The lecture hall, there are no chairs. Of course, it's only empty. It's a 2,000-year-old university. And there is a podium like this, of course, much higher. And I stood at the podium and posed as though I am giving a lecture. And it is electrifying, It's fantastic to see that 2,000 years ago, our country had built such wonderful universities. So actually, you see, the famous universities were at Nalanda, Takshashila. What happens?
Laptop screen
Why?
Touch.
Oh, maybe I will not operate with that. I don't know. This should be. See, Nalanda, Takshashila, Ujjain, and Vikramshila. There were, this special, you see, it's like business school. You have business school, medical school. Like that, for example, Ujjain was specializing in astronomy. Astronomy is not astrology. Don't make a mistake. Our ancient scholars had no illusion about astrology. And of course, you see, if you now go to recorded history, we have today, I have with me that book called Sulva Sutra. That is actually 200 years before Pythagoras. And Pythagoras' theorem comes there. So actually, if you want to be honest, Pythagoras' theorem should be called Baudhayana Sutra, not Pythagoras' theorem. But it doesn't matter really who you give credit. It's all in the past. But he knew Pythagoras' theorem. He didn't know the proof, but he knew Pythagoras' theorem. Aryabhata in the 5th century, he has written a book called Aryabhatiya, which deals with number theory. Number theory is the one in which Srinivasa Ramanujan became very famous, world famous. Geometry, algebra, astronomy. And, Aryabhata, 5th century, also discovery of zero and negative numbers, the meaning of negative numbers. All that he did. And then, of course, the very celebrated Brahmagupta Veeracharya and Bhaskaracharya. Mahaveeracharya, as the name indicates, was a Jain professor. Whereas Bhaskaracharya is the one whom we all love, you know. I don't know how many of you have seen Leelavati. You know, Leelavati is a Sanskrit text which has been translated to English 150 years ago. But it has been translated to Kannada some 50 years ago. But the book copy was sold and they were not available. But just 2-3 years ago, it is again some selected portion of Leelavati has been translated. It is a high school mathematics textbook, you know, and it's absolutely marvelous. You should solve the problems. You will be able to solve all the problems with Leelavati because you have learned enough mathematics. But they are very entertaining. You know, the way mathematics is taught is very different from the way you learn. And what is more surprising, see, today you learn calculus in your BSc, or +2 also you learn a little bit calculus. That was developed by Newton and Leibniz. That's a much later development, only a few centuries old. But if you see Bhaskaracharya 12th century Leelavati book, concepts of calculus are already there. See maxima, minima, and how the function should vary at the maxima and minima, and you know, trigonometric functions, sine, cosine, all these concepts are right there in the 12th century. He is a fantastic mathematician. So we have a very rich heritage. In other words, our past is glorious. You know, astronomy, Aryabhata, Varahamihira. There, see, Aryabhata, you know, this place particularly should be very proud of Aryabhata because the first spaceship we sent was, I think it was Aryabhata. First rocket we launched, ISRO launched, is Aryabhata. You see, obviously it has been recognized, Aryabhata and Varahamihira. Varahamihira, I think, was a Jain. Mathematics, pure mathematics, Apastamba, Brahmagupta, Varahamihira. Medicine, of course, you have all heard, Charaka and Sushruta. See, they have developed great systems of medicine. Don't think Ayurveda is nonsense. It is just that they developed 2000 years ago and then it has not been developed. So you see, it is stagnant. That way it doesn't compare with modern medicine, which is under constant revision and research. But if you work towards that, it will offer many new drugs. But anyway, a systematic medical practice, even surgery, was developed in Charaka Samhita. You know, it identifies many plants which have medicinal compounds in them. And metallurgy, of course, we were very great experts, producing iron, copper, silver, gold, and alloys of these. And I am sure all of you have heard of the famous pillar outside the Qutub Minar that was there much before Qutub Minar was built. It has not rusted. You know, that means they knew what alloy they have to make it rust-free. It is like stainless steel. So it's all very, we can be very proud of all these. Well, of course, you know, our past is glorious, but our past also is inglorious, terrible, which we have to be very aware. No point in saying, aha, I am good. You also have to know what is bad with you. First thing that happened in our country after the Vedic period was the separation of learning and labor. There were laborers, there were scholars, but they were not one and the same. You know, actually the second point also is the same, segregation of craftsmen and intelligentsia. Craftsmen is what? Those people who build satellite in Pina are craftsmen. But in old days, craftsmen were potters, carpenters, you know, metal extractors. These are real, you know, and those who made ornaments out of steel or, gold or silver. These were, you know, coppersmith, blacksmith, goldsmith. These were craftsmen. But they just learnt it from their dad. You know, the son learned from dad learned from granddad. It went on from generation to generation. They knew the craft. But the theory behind the craft, you see, you cannot go and build a satellite without doing a master's or PhD in aeronautics or electronics. Some subject you have to deeply study before you set out to make a satellite. But these craftsmen were not educated. They knew the craft. But those who learned all these, for example, the physics of crystals, they were really another class, which I call intelligentsia. These were actually segregated. This is the worst thing to happen. See, science develops if you combine understanding and experiment. You should have understanding, you should also do experiment. These intelligentsia never did any experiments. They sat in a place and taught and taught and taught. That thought becomes empty without the experiment. So the segregation of craftsmen and intelligentsia was actually a terrible thing. And suppression of women. See, in this hall, I see that there are more girls than boys. In fact, this ratio becomes even more. See, if you go to biochemistry department, Indian Institute of Science, 85% of the students, PhD scholars, are girls. Only 15% are boys. You go to the faculty in biochemistry, maybe 2 or 3% are girls, 97% are boys. Why does it happen? See, women are suppressed. Even today they are suppressed. They were suppressed 1,000 years ago. Of course, women do not rebel. You see, they think that it is natural. It's a very sad state, Why women in India cannot rebel? And why they cannot defend themselves? And, why this discrimination is tolerated? Of course, at least in Indian Institute of Science, professors, male or female, are paid the same amount. But in United States, if you take, male professors are paid more than female professors. So it's not just the Indian problem, it's a global problem. Discrimination against women is a global problem. But it is rampant in India. You know that every day you read in newspapers some or other atrocities committed on women. No atrocities committed against man. So I think we should get rid of this. It's a terrible thing. What has it got to do with science? Well, it has everything to do with science, because half the talent, half the ability to develop science is with women. The other half is with men. If only men contribute, you have lost half the intellectual force of India. This is the real tragedy, you see. A woman is as capable of contributing to our progress as a man. You know that the Mars mission, many people involved in Mars mission were women. I know that many of you have read about it. In fact, there's a book brought out by ISRO on the women who have worked for ISRO. They have done a great work. They are no less than men. So why discriminate? That's another. And of course, no respect for manual labor. See, I was in North India once. I was drinking tea in a cup, and the plastic cup fell down. It went into pieces. I tried to pick up. Then immediately the professor said, chodo. Hey, chota, aavo, saaf karo. So, you see, you cannot pick up a glass that you broke. Some servant has to come and clean it. This is the attitude we have at home also. See, men don't work, women work. Anyway, labor is not valued at all. It is in spite of the fact that Basavanna declared, Kayakave Kailasa. I know that you don't know Kannada. Kayakave Kailasa means, in English you can say work is worship. But Kailasa is heaven. Work is heaven. If you work, you have no worries. If you don't work, an idle man's brain is a devil's workshop. So our intelligentsia became idle man's brain, whereas craftsmen had no intellect. So this segregation was terrible. And of course, you see, people have realized, it is not that I have to tell you all these things. People have realized this disparity, and they try to alleviate it. And first major personality we see who tried to address this problem is Gautama Buddha. See, he made a reformation in the Vedic period when there were hierarchy of people at the end of Vedic period. That when there was Brahmin, Kshatriya, Shudra, and 4 communities, and they had different social status. Gautama Buddha rebelled against it. When somebody became a Buddhist, he loses all the caste. All of them are same. But somehow Buddhism itself was kicked out of India. We have now very few Buddhists. There are Buddhists in other countries, Ceylon, for example, or Japan, China also there are many Buddhists, but not in India. Anyway, Buddha failed in some sense in India. And then there were Alvars, they are Shaivites from Tamil Nadu. They had equality, anybody could become an Alvar. Not all of them were Brahmins or anything. Similarly, Basavanna in Karnataka. That, you see, for those of you who don't know Basavanna, please read Basavanna in translation. It is divine. His intuition of human psychology is so good. His vachanas, they are called vachanas. He created that form of literature. It is actually absolutely contemporary. It was written 800 years ago. But Basavanna made a revolution. He tried to completely disregard caste system and tried to make everybody equal. But again it failed actually. Eventually it failed because Basavanna's followers form a caste today, so-called Lingayats. But his real aim was not achieved at all. I cannot stop admiring Basavanna. I don't know how many Kannada-speaking people here have read many vachanas, not only of Basavanna, of Akka Mahadevi, Allama Prabhu. There are so many people who have written vachanas. They are really, very free, whatever you call human values, and moral independence, moral responsibility, whatever you call modern name, they are all there in vachanas. But somehow they also did not succeed. And there were Dasas, Purandara Dasa and Tyagarajar. These Dasas also were very noble people. They tried to see that differentiating two people on the basis of their color, creed, caste, is not really good. They sang, but unfortunately, there is a problem with Dasas, which I really feel that we should get rid of. I will tell you. See, in the time of Vedas, when there was no caste discrimination, the voice was very loud and very positive. I have a Sanskrit shloka here. I think if I read it, most of you will understand. Pashyema sharadashyatam, jivema sharadashyatam, nandama sharadashyatam. It goes on like this. What it means is that let us live for 100 years. Let our ears be good for 100 years. Let our eyes be seeing beautiful scenes for 100 years. Everything 100 years. See, first to notice is that they want to live. You see, this is a very positive attitude to life. We want to enjoy, we want to enjoy life for 100 years. It's 100 years. They were very, very practical. They know that it is not possible to live for 200 years. So never asked for living for 200 years, only 100 years. This 100 years, let us live well. This is a very bold voice, love of life, love of what you enjoy. You see, if you eat jalebi, eat it with pleasure. Don't mix, neem leaves with your jalebi. When you eat jalebi, you enjoy the sweet. Anyway, this attitude, bold attitude to life, all gets defeated when Dasarus come. They also, of course, had a moral philosophy, but they say, samsara bandhanava datiso guruve. I think most of you will understand. I am suffering from this life, this bondage, this world. Somehow relieve me from this suffering. That is a defeated voice. A person who has been defeated will tell like that. And it has its value. I am not saying that it has no value. It tells you to be humble. But it doesn't tell you to be, celebrating life. But in science we celebrate life. We believe that work, intellectual work and experimental work will lead you to progress. So this positive attitude is there in the times of Vedas. Afterwards we lost everything. And afterwards actually we lost even more. Actually, now we come to just pre-independent India. Then I will come to the modern times, last 75 years. In pre-independent India, we were ruled by the British. Before that, we were ruled by Arabs. Of course, none of them Arabs at least got assimilated in India, but Britishers never. They were foreigners. So the education system they supported. See, actually, Indian Institute of Science, which is the premier institute for science, when Tata wanted to start Indian Institute of Science, Britishers said India doesn't need it. You know, you don't need an institute. Why do you need an Institute of Science? If you want, we will support a Sanskrit college. They did not fund Indian Institute of Science. It was funded, the land was gift by Maharaja of Mysore. And the money was, seed money was Tata's. That is how it started. Britishers were opposed to it. So they taught English, of course. We all learned English from the Britishers. They wanted to expand the market for goods made in England. That was their main purpose. And then, of course, to spread Christianity. It's okay, it doesn't matter. You know, now in the day of science, it doesn't matter what religion you belong, I don't care. And you see, when you produce IAS officers, the Britishers had an idea that they should become obedient servants. You know, it's not to make them independent and take decision, improve society. Of course, now an IAS officer, we would like to give him powers to change society in a positive way. But Britishers didn't want that. They just tell them what to do and they should execute what the British officer said. Otherwise, they will be kicked out of their job. So they educated people, particularly Tamil IAS, for example, became huge number of IAS officers. They were actually obedient servants of the British. And then they all actually set departments which would do research, which would eventually supply what Britishers needed. You see, they were constructing a lot of railways. You know, those days, I don't know whether you have ever seen, railway tracks were covered with wood. You know, now they cover it with cement bars. Now it was wood bars. And wood has to be of quality, otherwise it will be eaten by insects. So that wood was available in our Western Ghats. So they set up a forest department. That was one of the first scientific department. And they set up Department of Agriculture because they wanted to control what is grown here. And in fact, in Gujarat, all the cotton grown was taken away by British and sent to Lancashire. And there they will make cloths, and the cloths will be returned to India, and people were asked to buy. That is why you see Gandhi started a boycott movement where they burnt all the cloths. It was an exploitation. And engineers and workers actually built railways to link these resource-rich places to the ports from which it can be shipped to England. Anyway, you see, mineral resources, where mineral, you know, Department of Metallurgy and Mineralogy, that they set up actually because they wanted minerals from India. So they were here to exploit us, not to improve India in any way. So actually, India suffered a great deal. We went back several hundred years because of British rule. Once after independence, things changed. Our government came. See, no matter how much you blame the government, you will see at the end of my talk that we have something to be proud of our government. Because you see, government is basically for Indians, for preserving Indian glory. That was not the aim of British. So you see, 1947 we got our independence. 1951, 4 years afterwards, an IIT was set up in Kharagpur. Of course, that was a very big feat because there were no teachers. Because to be a teacher in an IIT, you have to have an engineering degree and some research experience. But they started. And when it took off and started producing graduates, then immediately they set up IITs in Bombay, Madras, Kanpur and Delhi. These 5 IITs have produced graduates who have shined across the world. You know, in NASA, a large part of technocrats are from IITs. Similarly, in many companies in the West, IITians take a large part. Even in India, see, our ISRO is run by our engineering graduates. So they have really produced fantastically. And in late 50s and 60s, they also set up these regional engineering colleges, engineering centers, National Institutes of Technology, NITs. You know, there is one in Bangalore. You know that there are many places. You would have, of course, noted in your +2. Hello? You can still hear? Very good. So there is a power supply for this. Very good. Anyway, they set up those. That also has contributed to graduates in our country. And then in the new millennium, after 2000, government has gone all headway to improve Indian education. So it has now opened IITs almost in every state. There is an IIT in Dharwad. You know that, right? There is an IIT in almost every state. So there are now huge number of IITs. And then it started other institutes called IISERs, Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. See, you didn't apply. After your +2, you could have applied. And after your BSc also, you can apply for MSc course there. They are very good institutes compared to other colleges. They are on par with Indian Institute of Science. So there is one in Trivandrum, closest to our home. And there is one in Bombay. There is one in Delhi. There is one in Calcutta. There is one in Pune. There are several. Now this year they have started one in Tirupati. There are many IISers, and they want to do it as much as IITs. IISers train scientists, whereas IITs train engineers. So both of them are necessary, and they are very good institutes. And it also has recognized many universities as central universities, where you see they make sure that the teachers hired are of much better qualification, and the teaching protocol and the way it is inspected is much more strict. Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi is a central university. Hyderabad has a central university. These universities generally function better than our universities. So with all these, now India is producing excellent graduates in science and engineering. But the same type of excellence, you see, if you take medicine, there are some institutes which produce excellent doctors. See, everybody has talent. If the school is good, you produce a good graduate. If the school is bad, you produce a bad graduate. It has nothing to do with students, it has to do with schooling. See, I will tell you an easy example. You know, in Bangalore in Karnataka, I think except for those three people, I think everybody knows very well about Karnataka. Bangalore, if you take, 99 or 100% of the students pass SSLC exam. You take Raichur or Gulbarga, 30% of the students pass SSLC. And of course, Bangalore, not only they pass, most of them have high first class. Whereas here, they are all just pass class. But students are the same everywhere. You see, it is the education. So if you are unfortunate to study in Raichur or Gulbarga or Ballari or whatever, or if you are fortunate enough to study in Dakshin Kannada or Uttar Kannada, your future will be different. You know, it is not your mistake, it is the system. So when it is a system, whose job is it to improve the system? It is the job of the government. It is of course the job of professionals like us. It is not that you can expect everything to be done by the government. You have to do what you can, you know, and you have to approach those schools and see how you can make effective change in the school. But anyway, talent is everywhere. Actually, let me actually tell you something before I proceed. See, I have gone to many villages in Karnataka, and I have given lectures to primary school children. And I am always surprised to see how smart they are. You know, they ask such questions. I would be surprised if I get same question from you. You know, little kids of 6, 7 years. Once one girl asked me, we cry whenever we are happy, we cry whenever we are sad, very sad. Why is it both opposite emotions make us cry? I couldn't answer her, you know. So such bright kids are there. But what happens later, I know that these village kids fall off. It's very unfortunate, but their brightness is not actually utilized later. As far as they study in village, in Kannada, they are okay. The moment they come to higher education and they change their medium of instruction, English becomes such a terrible experience for them. Perhaps many of you would have had the same terrible experience if you have studied in local language and you had to change it to English after you are grown up. You see, it's very easy to learn language when you are a child, particularly if you are in that environment. Otherwise, it becomes extremely difficult. And many times they don't understand because of language, not because of intellect. But anyway, that's very terrible. But something else happened after India became independent. See, most of the great people, Sir C.V. Raman, of course, is a great individual. He lived after independence also. He is not totally pre-independence person. But the pre-independent people, when they were very talented, they had the right opportunity, they did great work. That's it. You know, it's a lot of credit for them, nothing more. But after independence, the whole scene changes. People built schools and, institutions. Vikram Sarabhai, Indian space research started with Vikram Sarabhai. See, if you go to ISRO now, there are 10,000 people working for ISRO. All this is because of one or two individuals like this. Vikram Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, Udupi, U.R. Rao. See, this place was founded by U.R. Rao. See, they were builders. They were not just scientists. They were great scientists. There is no doubt that they were very talented scientists. But they were also builders. And they had the freedom to build. They could ask the government, I want to build this, support me. But with the British, nobody had that freedom. So the face changes. So Vikram Sarabhai is one of the examples. I'll give you some more examples. They are very inspiring. And any of you can be a Vikram Sarabhai if you have the dedication and love of the country. See, these people were great patriots. And, Homi Jahangir Baba. All of you have heard of Baba Atomic Energy in Bombay. And you have many atomic energy centers. All that started with Baba. He was a cosmologist working on cosmic rays. But he also was an expert on nuclear reactions. So he set up an atomic research center, and now lot of power comes from nuclear energy. It's a carbon zero energy source. That means nuclear reactor does not produce carbon dioxide and pollute air. But of course it has its own risk, but which you have to take care. If there's a leak in a nuclear reactor, so far, fortunately, in India, no nuclear reactor has leaked. You know about Chernobyl. There were leaks in Japan. During the tsunami, one of the nuclear reactors leaked. That could be very deadly dangerous. But in general, it gives clean energy. So it's nice that the whole atomic energy, and I will tell you a little more what atomic energy has done for our country. But that's all his, actually, that Baba, and then you see Swaminathan, many people in the West had predicted that millions and millions will die in India in the 60s and 70s because of food shortage. Today we are exporting. You heard yesterday's newspaper that India shipped a huge quantity of wheat to Afghanistan, free of cost. It is not even sold. It is free, gift. We are that capable. And all thanks to Swaminathan. He built Indian agriculture research. And Indian agricultural research now has very strong roots, very strong. There was a ragi man in Karnataka, very unknown person, but he has created so many ragi varieties. Now the ragi is becoming popular because it has less carbohydrate, good for diabetic patients who are increasing in the country. So agriculture, we have made very high progress. See, potato is not our crop, it is from South America, but it has been acclimatized to Indian, potato is grown in North India as well as South India, where the weather conditions are different. These are by Potato Research Institute in Shimla. They have grown varieties of potato which will grow in all these regions. See, you can be any kind of scientist and contribute to the country. That is very clear. And You know, you know one of them, probably you would know. Salim Ali you will know, right? But Obaid Siddiqui, many of you may not know. Obaid Siddiqui came empty-handed to India. Very brilliant person, and he started his research work in TIFR Bombay. And the subject they developed is called ecology. It was almost unheard of in India. Now Indian Institute of Science has a department called Department of Ecology. All the faculty members there, professors, are ecologists. They study conservation of forests, forest animals, see they keep count of the number of tigers in India. There are so many things. You see, it's a natural resource. Our forests, our fauna and plants are our resource. You lose them, that's all. There is nothing, no coming back. Who has to keep track of how many varieties of plants and animals and birds are there in India? And these great people started that field. Now it has grown into a very major research. I will tell you very simple things. You know, you enjoy eating mangoes. Does anyone know how many different varieties of mangoes are in India? You know a few mangoes that are available in Bengaluru. You know, whatever, Totapuri, Alfonso, whatever, you know. But there are so many varieties. If you go to North India, almost every state has tens of varieties. Who is to keep track of these? And you may lose some of them because nobody grew. You know, actually bananas, now most popular banana is the little banana, which is called Yeleki Bale in Kannada. And then Robusta. Robusta means big one. This, what is it called? Pachbale. But there was also a banana called Rasbale. Nanjangud was very famous for Rasbale. It's very tasty, but that's almost vanishing. So somebody has to note that it is vanishing and preserve it because it's a resource. Like that, that kind of work is being done in India now. And you may not know, he is my mentor in some way. I worked in a department which was founded by him, CN Ramachandran. He is a biophysicist. You know, biophysics in India grew out of Ramachandran. He was a great biophysicist. He discovered the structure of collagen. See, collagen is the skin. What is the structure of this collagen? It's not soluble in water, of course. Otherwise, when you go to a good swim, when you come back, you will have problems, right? But anyway, what is the structure of this collagen? That's the guy who worked it out. He established a school. And now I worked at Molecular Biophysics Unit of the Indian Institute of Science. That department itself was founded by Ramachandran. And it has now grown into a very major branch of research in India. So each of the people I have shown are creators of great things in India. Well, I am sure all of you know, he is a man who likes to, you know, he's a fantastic speaker. And particularly he loves students. So he goes and interacts with students everywhere. Professor CN Rao, he is a Bharat Ratna, you know, and that is a very little title for him. He deserves even more. You see, you know what is his age? He is almost 90, and he works harder than you. He wakes up at 4 a.m. in the morning and works till 11 o'clock in the night, non-stop. He is a fireball of work. And this enthusiasm for work is his love of life, you know, so much that he won't stay. You know, you cannot stay quiet. He has to do research. He is publishing 20 research papers per year or whatever. He is really, really great man. And he is the one who is responsible for another department, Department of Solid State and Structural Chemistry at Indian Institute of Science. He also founded another institute, whole research institute, called Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research. The whole institute, which has 50 or more professors, was founded by him. So they have built big schools, you see, not just individual work. See, people like me, we just do whatever we can and maybe train a few students. But these people build schools, you know. Their followers are in thousands and thousands. And of course, you have heard of Varghese Kurian. I don't know whether you know, India is the largest producer of milk in the world. There is no other country which produces as much. And you know, earlier people used to wait for Swiss chocolates because they are so wonderful. Now you will get equivalent chocolate from Amul, you know, same quality chocolate. And there are many other companies in India which make chocolates. How does it happen? Somebody has to, you know, develop the industry. And Korean developed dairy. And now, of course, every farmer has been benefited. And you know that, you see, when I was your age, to get a liter of milk, you had to go all around Shimoga for me. It was very difficult. If some guests come to your house, you run out of buttermilk. And it was so difficult to get milk. Now, how much do you want? 200 liters? You can go and buy in any Nandini store. We have plenty of milk. In fact, actually, every day milk was going to Calcutta from Bengaluru. Everywhere we produce excess milk. And we have, of course, still there are children who don't get milk because there is poverty. So, see, equitable distribution is not there. But milk at least is available in the country. And that's because of that man. And now, let's take another way of looking at it, how our country has progressed. We now have done Mangalyaan. And now Chandrayaan 2, Chandrayaan 3 will come. That capacity is ours. See, once some cryogenic engines were not given to India by America stopped it. But our scientists developed it independently. So much of the technology that goes into making satellites and rockets has been indigenously developed. So we should be very proud of it, you know. The failure, little failure that happens, every country has failed. See, America also has failed. Actually, only one country which did Mangalyaan first time and succeeded was India. Well, we have some success stories, we have some failures. Let's accept that Chandrayaan 2 wanted to land a rover on moon, but the lander fell down and got damaged. So we have our failures, but it's still circling moon, the satellite. So we have success, we have failure, but we have done it, you see. Whatever it is, we have done it. It's not that we are the greatest in the world, but we have done it. And actually, this has a little story which is very nice. See, we detonated a nuclear weapon in a place called Pokhran in Rajasthan. Once I went to a conference in Tirupati, SV University, Tirupati, and I was accommodated in their university guest house. When I went in the evening to the guest house, I saw two people standing at the door with guns in their hands. I was wondering why these people are standing with guns. Is there some student protest or violence in the place? Then I went and slept, and in the morning we had breakfast, and as a breakfast, Professor Chidambaram joined me. Chidambaram is somebody whom I knew for past 30 years. He's senior to me, but he's almost a colleague because we work in the same field. He's the architect of this Pokhran bomb. And so the two people with gun were actually for him. See, he was under protection all the time. But anyway, Pokhran was a great success. And of course, following that, they detonated a hydrogen bomb. That is also at Pokhran. And America put a lot of sanctions on India. See, these days, sanctions mean a lot because, you see, the skin of goats and buffaloes that is cleared in Tamil Nadu goes to Thailand, where they actually make into purses and whatever, and then goes to England and America and gets sold. See, if India blocks trade to Thailand, then you don't get bags in America. This interdependence of countries are there. See, we have many planes, but the spare parts for planes should come from Europe or America. And if sanctions are made, sanctions are put against India, we don't get the spare parts. So all our jumbo jets or whatever expensive jets will come to a standstill. So it is terrible actually, these sanctions. And West is always threatening, we will put you sanction. After Pokhran explosion, there was sanction in India. Somehow we digested it, and then the West has accepted us as a nuclear power. See, it is like saying, see, you got into a bus, and then the next person wants to get into a bus. No, 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 there is no space, don't come. But till you get in, oh, there is space, move, 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 I want to get in. It is the same psychology the world follows. They want to have nuclear weapons. They don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Well, I think nobody should have nuclear weapons. If everybody wants to, if everybody agrees to get rid of nuclear weapons, I think it is a much safer world. Nobody should have. But you cannot say, I want to have, but you don't have. You know, that is a very big discrimination. See, North Korea has nuclear weapons, and West is actually making it complete pauper by putting sanctions. Iran has suffered a great deal because you cannot buy Iranian oil. See, India cannot buy Iranian oil because America says don't buy. When America says you cannot violate, because he is the Dodana of the world. So you see there is a lot of discrimination in the world. The only way we can keep our dignity high is to be self-reliant. You know, that's what Modi is shouting all the time, Atmanirbhar Bharat, whatever that means. But anyway, that's the way. You know, we have to be proud. And we are second to nobody. I will tell you we are second to nobody. But that belief you have to have. You have to develop the trust in yourself. That I am not saying that every one of us is Srinivasa Ramanujan. I am not. See, I am what I am, and you are what you are. It is just that you should not underestimate yourself. Given the status in our country, the way we have been brought up, most of us have a low impression of ourselves. You know, we are better than that. So that we have to start believing. See, there are also other fantastic things. See, at Kalpakam in Tamil Nadu, there is a nuclear reactor. That type of nuclear reactor is not there anywhere in the world. That's a thorium reactor, not uranium reactor. And that technology is Indian. You see, it's really something that we can be proud of. And you see, recently in Indore, Atomic Energy has built a machine. This is a machine. See, this is actually round machine, huge machine. It's called a synchrotron. And it produces X-rays of tremendous intensity, which is useful for all kinds of medical and material science and structural research. You see, this is a general purpose machine. And this has been completely built by BRC. The whole technology is built by BRC engineers. Where did we get that power? Because our education base has been raised. Well, so like that, you see the number of achievements we have made is fantastic. This has also led to private enterprise. It's not only in government hands. See, Bharat Biotech. See how quickly India came up with a vaccine for COVID-19. This would not have been possible even 20 years ago because we have a biotechnology base. See, many of you, I was talking to somebody, they're all doing biotechnology. Some of them will become so brilliant that they know how to make vaccines. See, that is a technology you learn in biotechnology. You can make drugs and vaccines. Very successful company in Hyderabad, and there are many such. You know, there are 500 biotech companies in Bengaluru. So it's really something very big. The achievement is very big. See, in Bangalore, you know, Kiran Majumdar, you have heard of her. She is again a builder. She has built this biotech park, and she produces human insulin by biotechnological means. And she produces so much that the entire Indian diabetic patients can get her insulin. And she is now exporting it to Europe and Africa. And they are much cheaper than what Europeans produce. So that way we can produce many, many things. And of course, I will tell you, this Sran Genomics is a big company now. It was started by just 3 professors of computer science department. In our institute, 3 professors from computer science department started this company, Sran Genomics. This is a biotechnology company, but it was started by 3 computer science people. Because nowadays, biotechnology is so much to do with computers. A computer scientist understands many things. They have employed, of course, biologists in their company, but the company is making profit. You know, it's a big company now. So, you see, many private things are coming up. And you see, with all the poor colleges we have, see, I had a nephew who was studying engineering, computer science, and sometimes he would joke with me. The only person in our class who doesn't understand some portion of computer science is our teacher. You know, I'm sure you would have felt that. Sometimes some teachers are so bad that you are much better than them. But with all useless companies like that, we have produced computer software experts, and you know, in US dollars, the money that India makes in IT industry has grown enormously. It's a constant growth till today. Never any dip in this. How is it possible? Because you see, no matter what you educate, you know, even if you are in a bad college, there are students who are talented enough to learn on their own. See, they don't become junk. They will learn. They will be able to program. And you see, I think it is nice to know, I don't know how many of you have seen Jurassic Park. Much of the animation in Jurassic Park is done in Bangalore, not in America. See, you know, actually, J.C. Penney is a very big store in America. And the program they use to handle all their chain stores is again made in Bangalore. Swiss banks have their programs written in Bangalore. That's how our trade has grown up. Still, we have a premier place in software industry. India, China, and Israel are really hotspots of software industry. And I am sure many of you will end up in software industry, particularly those who have joined engineering department. You don't have to have engineering degree. You can actually do computer science with science specialization. Actually, you see, we also have set up, which was not there in the time of prior to our independence. The government of India has set up huge number of industries. It is, of course, both public and private. See, you know that, you know, when I came for this lecture, I came through Bharat Electronics. You know how much is the achievement of Bharat Electronics and then Bharat Heavy Electricals. These kind of heavy industries need a lot of capital, and that is something that government can do. You cannot start a heavy industry today, an iron refinement factory, extraction of iron from ore. You cannot set up a company, it needs crores of rupees. So it has to be done by government, but when private individuals make a lot of profit, they can set up their own company. I have just listed not companies, but fields in which we have built many big companies. Steel, for example, minerals and metals, power generation, petroleum, Indian oil. That is entirely pro-independent, after independence. Fertilizers, we produce a lot of fertilizers for ourselves. Although we import fertilizers from Ukraine, which is in trouble now. So our agriculture may get affected. You see, what happens in one part of the world can affect other parts. And heavy engineering, medium and light engineering, transportation, see, we produce a lot of autos, for example. Although car technology is not, actually we have Tata cars and Tata buses and lorries. Actually India exports a huge number of lorries to Africa. Our lorries are much suited, trucks are much suited to Africa than the trucks made in United States or Europe. Because their roads are narrow like ours, and the trucks have to be small. In America, the trucks are made as long as this room. They cannot turn in any road in Africa. So they import Indian vehicles. And consumer goods, you see, long ago it was very fashionable to bring a blender or mixer from America because nobody has that. Now, one a penny company, there are so many companies which make that. And agro-based industries, you must have seen all kinds of foods are available in the market now. Starting from packet rasam rice. You can buy rasam rice in the market and keep it for months and use it. From there to textiles. Textiles, is something which is remarkable. You see, the Japanese textiles or American textiles were very valued even 40 years ago in India. Today, the textiles produced in India are an enemy of the world. You know, you can buy it here. In fact, actually, you go to America, go to any store, take any cloth, it says made in India, made in China, made in, not China, made in Pakistan or made in Bangladesh. Our textiles are wonderful. They're very good. We don't have to worry about textiles at all. Well, see, all this is fine. They're all public interest enterprises. But what has the government done for students? Here also our achievement is not small. So Indian government, no matter whether it's BJP or Congress or it doesn't matter, is always constantly expanding basic science, establish connection between science and technology, and integrate with education. This effort has been going on irrespective of the government. So we should be very happy about it. You see, for example, I think all of you have missed this opportunity. There is an Inspire fellowship for young students. You know, if you pass this, you will be given scholarship for higher education. So, you see, poverty should not come in the way of your education if you have really big talent. But there are problems in implementing these. I am very aware of it, but we don't have time to discuss what are the lacunae in these. But the scheme itself is excellent. And you know, if you want to, as an undergraduate, you want to do some research, you know, you want to have a taste of research. There are many institutes. I have listed a huge number of institutes. In all these institutes, as a BSc student, you can actually be trained to do scientific investigations. This won't happen in National College or Vijaya College because they don't have the money or facilities. But these are given enough grants by our government, central government, to help students to enter research field even as they are undergraduates. See, this is very useful for you. See, particularly for +2 students, it's very useful because after +2, they can go to, say, for example, Indian Institute of Science or National Institute of Science Education and Research, Center for Basic Sciences, Mumbai, and then Hyderabad Central University. Hyderabad, I don't know why I have repeated, but there are many such institutes now. See, now there are institutes which are a little more specialized. They will train you in both basic science and some technology. For example, you see, ISRO itself has a college in Trivandrum. I don't know how many of you knew it. After your +2, you write an exam. If you pass, you will be put in Trivandrum College. All your fee is paid by ISRO. You don't have a penny expenditure. Everything is covered. You get enough scholarship. And after graduation, you directly become an employee of ISRO. No interview or nothing. Once you get graduation, you are an employee. You have to work for 5 or 10 years. Afterwards, you can take any job you want. They want 10 years of your service. But they will train you in space technology and, you know, real space technology. I don't know how many of you knew about it. If you didn't know, unfortunately, you have missed a golden opportunity. Like that, there are many other institutes where you will get financial support for your education. So, to help our poor people. Well, actually, as I said, Indian Institute of Technology is, well, let me skip. This is more or less similar. You can actually get higher education, not just BSc degree, MSc, PhD, or more qualification. There are IITs where you can do, central universities you can do, ISER and NISER, these are all you have to note. And stem cell institutes, translational research institutes, UNESCO Center for Biotechnology, and like that TIFR, NCBS, CCMB, there are many, many such institutes. Every state now has a premier institute where you can do real world-class research if you really get admission into these. So you should know all these and try to get into one of these institutes once you graduate from your college. And then, see, in our country, for various reasons, people lose. You see, if particularly women are forced to take off for 1 or 2 years when they get a child, because they have to look after the child, and there is also family pleasure. Nobody else is to look after. So they leave their research. But then, you see, it is a loss to the country. You train a woman till she is capable of doing original research, and she leaves research. It's a national loss. You know, you grow a coconut tree, and when it's about to give fruit, cut it. It's such a terrible mistake. So we have introduced so-called re-entry fellowships. If you have a break in your career, you can enter back. You have an opportunity. For that, you see, UGC Faculty Recharge Program, Ramalingaswamy Fellowship, Ramanujan Fellowship, Inspire Faculty Position, these you can compete in the open and get it. And then you are not dependent on a university to select you. You can join any place. You will be guaranteed 5 years salary. You will be given enough research money, so you can conduct your own research. And any college will accept because they have no expenditure because of you. And then you can, in 5 years, you can actually find another job. You know, that is plenty of time to find a job. That kind of recharge programs are there. And of course, you see, we have established a huge number of departments. I won't go into the detail. DST, DBT, CSIR, UGC, DAE, DIT, DRDO, like that. There are many, many government departments. All these departments, see, DST, for example, was established in 1981. DBT was established in 1986. These are all not very old, but definitely not when I was young, many of these departments were set up. And they support research of individuals. If you have a good idea, you write to them, they will give you money to do research. That opportunity is there. Many, many institutes. Of course, if you want to apply to DBT, it has to be a biotechnology project. You cannot write an aeronautics or mathematics project to biotechnology. There is DAE, for example. If you have a good mathematics idea, you can write to DAE, they will give you money to do research. And actually, they also have places where they will give grant to the whole institute, not individual grant. For example, if you have a very good department in your college, the department itself can get a big support. They are called institutional grants. There are many agencies which give you, they are very big. They can give you 50 crore rupees. You know, whereas individual grants will be 50 lakh rupees, something like that. Such programs are there. Well, you see, I now have just last 2 slides, I will finish. See, we have a hope that India will improve because we have a large consumer base. Our population is very large. Whatever you manufacture, you know, actually, I noticed that many of you would have noticed. In the market, there was this mayas, whatever it's called, mayas eatables. And from North India, there is another, I don't know, what is the name? MTR was there. Now you see that Adukulai, there is an Adukulai. They are also marketing all kinds of products. The consumer base is very large. So whatever you manufacture, if you can do it well, you have a huge market. And we have a rich talent pool in the sense that we have people who have talent. How to blossom, how they blossom, that is our responsibility. You know, you should not allow flowers to wither. You have to water the plant. How do we water our talent plants? That is something that we have to think. Our schools, science and technology policy, all of them are in place, but we cannot be, just keep quiet. There are many challenges. I will just tell you some of the challenges, and I feel so strongly about it. I think you should know and you should ponder about it. Our universities, you see, all research institutes are okay, but universities are in a pathetic state. You know, you go to any university, state university, it is in a pathetic state because there is corruption, so people are hired because they pay money, or there is caste politics. You are hired because of your caste. Both of them doesn't do well to improve our science and technology. And there is no inclusivity. See, we have reservation. Has the reservation is very successful? See, certainly reservation has brought out some people who were very from uneducated families come to the fore. It has had a positive effect. I am not objecting at all. But it has not had the positive effect in the sense, if you see a child of a street cleaner in Bangalore, he will never become a professor. The person, a Dalit person who becomes a professor is not from such low strata of society. See, we have failed to uplift our lowest strata of society, those who are daily workers, laborers. Their children, we have not given opportunity. So this reservation hasn't worked very well. We have to see how, we need a politician who has enough wisdom to modify this reservation policy such that it actually addresses the lowest strata of society. Because how many Ramanujans are there among the children of our street workers? I am not joking, there will be Ramanujans, and they will never find the light of the day. That is a very big tragedy. So it is a limited success of reservation. It has been a success, but not enough. And punctuality, sense of time. If I have to finish at 11:30, if I don't finish at 11:30, I have to feel guilty. Women empowerment, I have already talked a lot. Women are suppressed everywhere in the world. More so in our country, even much more so in Pakistan and Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, they are dirt. Here, they are chappal, not dirt. But note that you are discriminated. So you should feel very angry. When a boy mistreats you, you should actually react. You cannot accept it. Okay. Women empowerment. The reason why I say this is necessary for science and technology is because half our talent is women. If you ignore them, we have ignored half our talent. And we have bureaucracy, I won't go into that. And we also have kind of lack of collaboration that has something to do with poverty, but unfortunately I don't have time to discuss that. Last point I have put is language conundrum. See, India is a country of multiple languages. Every state has a language, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu. In China, China is much bigger than India in area. Everywhere people understand one language, Mandarin. So actually they learn in Mandarin. Science and technology, they learn in Mandarin. This year they have introduced Kannada to technology education. Some colleges have started technology, B.Tech in Kannada. But who has written a book? There are so many excellent books in English. It's not enough to introduce Kannada. You have to have books. And those books, Feynman lectures on physics, they are absolutely marvelous books. Such books, who will write? You have to have both knowledge of language and knowledge of science. There's so many, English is so rich in every aspect. You cannot just introduce Kannada. This is a problem which I think it is such a complex problem, it will need our seminar to discuss that. So I won't discuss that, and that is all more or less what I have to tell you. And thank you very much. I hope you will ponder over what I have said.